Hello Internet, welcome back to my channel. There has been a lot of developing story and events around Cyberpunk 2077 to the point everyone is covering about it, so I decided to cover it in my own way regarding this matter. In this video, I'll be explaining why Cyberpunk 2077 is getting only one expansion and pointing out the key events that led to this decision being made. So let's jump in and see why. On 26th May, publisher CDP made a group investor call at which they showcased metrics about the company's performance to their investors. The data shown is very crucial as the upper management dictates the fate of Cyberpunk 2077 moving forward. Now, it has been speculated by many when the new expansion would drop. Many speculated for CDPR to drop the new expansion sometime in summer due to how quiet things were for this game. But thanks to the information put out by CDP, we can now see when the new update is dropping. During the investor call, this graph was presented and shows portions of the team working on various games. Now, this graph with no numbers or stats looks as vague as a Romanian pensioners fund, but judging by the three vertical lines dividing the colored bars, I'll say that about 50% of the team is working on the expansion as of April 2022. Which is a sizable growth considering that just a month ago, only about 20% of the dev team was working on the expansion. The next slideshow gives us a vague indication of what's to come anytime in the second half of 2022. The anime adaptation of Cyberpunk game will air on Netflix and The Witcher Next Gen Upgrade will too release in September of 2022. But then this was later delayed to 2023 because of course, everything in this timeline had to be delayed. However, the big thing here is the last one, which is that the marketing for Cyberpunk 2077 expansion states to start during the same time frame and the expansion set to release in 2023. Notice that the word expansion is singular and not plural, meaning it somewhat confirms that we're only getting just one expansion and not two like they had originally promised pre-release. Now, this decision was taken long back, even before all this information was put out. So why is it that we're getting only one expansion, that too in 2023 rather than getting it later this year? Well, to answer this question, first we need to take a look at this graph, which was put out by CDPR themselves last year back in 2021. The stability improvement graph, which shows the crash rate, is our first culprit. While it looks like a typical cryptocurrency graph going into consolidation after Elon Musk has flirted with it, or the uncertainty of the war has jeopardized it, it gives us one clear indication. The red engine, which all of CDPR games are based off of, all suffer from the same issues that are not apparently initial. This was confirmed by all the evidence all over social media and the memes made on it. And then this was further clarified in an interview when CDPR announced that going forward they will be using the Unreal Engine 5 to base their newer games on. In an interview during the announcement of CDPR endorsing Unreal Engine 5, one of the devs pointed out how every time they wanted the game to do something, it just didn't deliver the way they expected it to. This was once again confirmed by all the bugs and glitches we saw after every patch driving home that point. Now, CDPR did say that they will eventually move to Unreal Engine 5 based games once the expansion for Cyberpunk 2077 is released, and will continue to support the game for a while. But the fact that we're getting only one expansion rather than the promised two pre-release can only mean that the devs just want to move away from this engine ASAP by all means, and it all just leaves a very sour taste in everyone's mouth. There's another reason as to why Cyberpunk 2077 is getting just one expansion. If you remember, back in June of 2021, several key developers, including the director of Cyberpunk, decided to leave the company, as they lightly put it, seeking new opportunities and ending their time. Now, the reason why so many devs had left the company was not because of the cyber attacks or that their data got phished or that the entire code for Red Engine was leaked, but rather they were actually fired by the upper management. This is because the devs don't just leave the company en masse at once, but this was done by the upper management as they put it, take one for the team. In this case, the product underperformed and underdelivered. And in order to reap in most of the profits from a failing product, the upper management simply asked them to leave the company. Hence, along with it, the talent too walked out of the door as well. As of making of this video, another detail had emerged that adds to the growing reasons why Cyberpunk 2077 is getting only one expansion. Shout out to Upper Echelon Games and Paul Tassi from Forbes for putting out this story broken by a whistleblower. With the time running short, CDPR hired a third-party QA testing team in June of 2019 to fasten up bug fixing process. These are companies that will test an alpha or beta version of any game for bugs and glitches, provide feedback and report on all the bugs and glitches that they were able to find and solve. Essentially an outsourced QA company. And this is where not just the game's reputation but even CDPR as a company would take a massive hit. The company hired for QA testing was Quantic Labs. This is a company that had mixed reputation with how they operate. They are owned by the Embracer Group and under them have QA tested some of the best-selling games like The Witcher 3, Warhammer 40k, Farming Simulator and Spider-Man to name a few. An alleged whistleblower from the Quantic Labs had recently contacted several journalists about the treatment of employees and working ethics there. The company had reported to CDPR that they had allocated industry veterans for QA testing of Cyberpunk 2077. In reality, they had hired juniors with less than a year of experience in QA testing. The reason Quantic Labs was chosen because they had previously QA tested Witcher 3. Not knowing that almost all the QA testers had resigned due to payment issues and employee treatment, Quantic Labs chose to lie that they had allocated veterans for the task. Remember, this is a company that operates out of Romania and they can only communicate via selected channels to CDPR in Poland, and the only trust they have is by past interactions. People had put a lot of blame on CDPR's upper management, but that is nothing compared to Quantic Labs' way of dealing with QA testing. They had set an arbitrary quota for these novice testers to find 10 bugs per day per worker. This was a policy of mind-bending proportions that somehow got enacted into the company.
That doesn't make sense.
While this might work in a post-fully digital scenario, what it doesn't do is address major issues, especially for a game the size and ambitious as Cyberpunk 2077. This arbitrary quota of finding bugs and reporting it back to the devs at CDPR meant that irrelevant bugs like clipping and missing texture were being reported en masse rather than the core ones. All that meant that some of the core aspects of the game were ignored in the midst of the barrage of irrelevant bugs and glitches that were being reported by the QA team. And that led to several missions and AI being overlooked and buried in the game files, left unused at launch because the dev team just wasn't getting any positive result from the QA team. All these series of consequences, the engine being stubborn to work with, the experienced devs leaving the studio, the shift towards the Unreal Engine 5, and mismanagement by the Quantic Labs means that there is almost no time and limited resources to make 2 expansions. There were leaks about this expansion by another whistleblower who had put out the plot point of it. Now, I'm not going to dive into it and find out all those leaks contained, but instead judge the expansion after playing it myself when it drops. So that's about it. To conclude, it is sad that a game with all the hype ultimately led to where it is and how lowly this game is getting its send-off. But there is more to look forward to with the new Unreal Engine 5 projects and the new Witcher 4, whenever that will launch. Write in the comments below what do you think of this and how CDPR could have handled it any different. Make sure to like, share and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, take care and bye bye.